DPAC. What a fantastic group of people. Hard hit by this vicious government, and the group that has really fought back with absolute bravery, and we really welcome Ciara. Thank you.
Thank you, although I really don't know how I'll quite follow the last speech. It's amazing. Thank you. I'm here today, I was asked to talk about disabled workers in particular. So looking at the issue of both disabled rights and workers' rights. And if there's one thing I can tell you, that's not two different concepts. That concept is absolutely 100% one and the same thing. Disabled people's rights are workers' rights, and workers' rights are disabled people's rights. And the divide is completely and utterly unnecessary and false. I'm very proud to say that on Halloween I'm going to be on strike. Unite, unison, we're all out together. I will have a busy day there, I can tell you. One person won't be on strike with us that stands front and centre in my mind today. The office next to mine is empty. I had a colleague who, through gross and serious overwork and poor terms and conditions, began to suffer from depression, had to take a period of sick leave, after which she was brought to a fitness to practice committee, and it was suggested to her, because her mental health was no longer perfect, that she could no longer practice as a lecturer. So the office is now silent and empty, while poorly paid 0 hours contract workers are brought in to teach her classes. So she will not be on the picket line with us. And this is the exact area of overlap that we're seeing everywhere. We're seeing it in all professions. Never before this year have I heard such a constant and ongoing outcry from so many people about these damn fitness to practice committees, because we only allow certain kinds of workers in our society, and every day it tightens. If you are completely able-bodied, white, male, this narrow little concept, particularly around any form of physical or mental health issues, are you accepted to be a worker? And if you deviate from that in any way, I mean, just what fuckwittery is going on with the firefighters? Be out there supporting the firefighters in any action they took, because what's going on is complete fuckwittery. We're telling people that they can be forced to work to 60 or beyond to claim a pension, and that if they become unfit at any point in time before that, they will lose all their rights. But those same people, if they then end up in the welfare system, will equally be told, we're sorry, you're not disabled, fuck off. Came in, that you were judged to be unfit for work and eligible for benefits if you were unable to do your occupation. And that has changed. So now if you're able to do any conceivable job imaginable, that doesn't exist. You're not allowed any benefits. And yet, right and left across the sector, we're seeing people pushed out of their jobs towards the end of their careers for failing to keep up that level of absolute peak physical fitness, while being denied any benefits, because we're living in this toxic environment where any failure to achieve perfect normality is seen as a personal failing for which that individual must be punished. We're told that this is about austerity. We're told that this is about money and money saving, so that because we somehow caused this crisis. We didn't cause the crisis, the banks caused the crisis, and the bank's crisis is being used as an excuse to drive forward a new ideology about only certain people have value and therefore only certain people should have any rights. It's nonsense. No cost savings are being enacted by any of this bullshit. Right? So very, very briefly, briefly, I won't be long about it. I want to take the example of access to work funding really specifically. Access to work funding is the money that pays for supportive equipment for people who have disabilities to return to the workplace or to stay in the workplace. That has been completely altered this year, but because it hasn't been cut in the same way as other benefits, it's not been scrutinised as closely. Access to work now refuses to fund any equipment, and all contracts for funding equipment for workers are being brought to an end. Okay? So I made an application myself under Access to Work recently, as I reached a point myself where I could no longer continue to work without an electric wheelchair, as I could no longer get myself between classrooms. And I just happened to be unfortunate enough to apply right after this rule change came in. So Access to Work will no longer fund a wheelchair for me. Therefore, what they'll do instead is they'll fund taxis for me to get me to work, to get me home from work, and to get me around campus in between time. 3 months of taxis would pay for the most expensive wheelchair on the market, and yet they're willing to give me this grant for 3 years. There is no economic logic behind it whatsoever. It's about refusal to support people. When I made the application to Access to Work, the advisor speaking to me on the phone, having got me to outline the list of my issues, said, well, it's a lot to ask, isn't it? Perhaps it's not really reasonable for you to consider staying in your job. They were her very words. This is what we're up against. But we're not going to stay up against it for long. We're going to fight back. Thank you.